wonderful day to talk about the journey. So I'll request you to please give a brief introduction and then I'll get started with the question.
Thanks, Sriram, for inviting me to be part of this show. Talking about the journey that I have undertaken in my life so far, it has been an exciting one where I have had the privilege and opportunity to be part of the corporate world, playing leadership roles, and at the same time have had the opportunity to be part of the social sector and trying to see how the learnings and the networks developed in the corporate sector could be leveraged for the benefit of the disadvantaged individuals. Right after I finished my MBA in Delhi University, I started my career with the manufacturing sector with Crompton Greaves. And thereafter, I moved into the IT field, working with NIIT and thereafter with Aptech, where I had the opportunity actually with Aptech to set up Aptech's international centers way back when in the 80s, when India was beginning to make its mark in the field of IT and computers. And computer education was a forerunner for the software industry, as all of us are aware. And I had the privilege to be part of Aptech's international business to set up the centers in the Middle East. Well, and thereafter, my journey took me to the media world, a completely unplanned and unexpected opportunity that came my way. And in Zee TV, I was able to understand or get to the grassroots of being an entrepreneur and set up Zee Education, the channel, the television channel to promote education through television in the private sector. At that time was the first of its kind. And once again, we were pioneers in terms of trying to disseminate what computers was all about, and we actually tried to look at disseminating understanding through the television, and for practical hands-on experience, they could come to the Zed points which we set up across the country. So that was a unique experience. And because of the television reach, in the 90s, this information, this knowledge could also be disseminated across the borders to other countries where Zee TV was being received. After that, I actually wanted to have some intellectual stimulation after the 7 years that I spent in Zee TV trying to build this concept. That's when I went back to academics and I enrolled myself for a PhD program with IIT Bombay. And I completed my PhD program, wherein apart from intellectual stimulation, it also gave me an opportunity to think about what should be my career going forward, and what are the areas in which I think I could contribute based on what I picked up through my PhD research, and also what appealed to me from my past experience. So that led me to start thinking about an entrepreneurial journey. And yes, that led to setting up eventually GTT, Global Talent Track, aimed at enabling the youth of the country to possess the right skills so that they could become employable. So we picked a few industry segments for which we could prepare the youth who could be deployed after they undergo the training with us. So apart from GTT, which was a for-profit entity that we set up, I also co-founded the foundation called GTT Foundation. So over the period of last 12 years, while GTT has now got listed on Bombay Stock Exchange, and it has assumed the name of GTT Data, GTT Foundation continues to focus on the activities that are making transformational impact for the youth, for women, for other underprivileged sections of the society. And we manage to train close to about 100,000 people every year across multiple locations in tier 2, tier 3 colleges and institutions in particular, and also in the communities where there are school dropouts and college dropouts, and they require desperately support, and women who have never stepped out of their homes for their livelihood. So out of about 100,000 people that we managed to train, we find that at least about 70 to 80% of them take up jobs or become micro entrepreneurs or self-employed with our help. So that gives me a great satisfaction as to how, a little bit of a difference we are able to make to this humongous problem that we have in this country of trying to get more and more people above the poverty lines and more people into jobs and sustainable careers. So that's been my journey.
It is wonderful to see that you hardly see women leaders leading, and what you have done is phenomenal in terms of nations are built on skills, and you did phenomenal when it comes to NIIT and Aptech and skilling area. So could you please tell me about what was your thought process while taking up that role and while you were delivering that?
See, in the early days, it was all the excitement of how do we get across to a large population in this country and be part of a story where we will be able to get the youth to acquire those IT skills. Yes, I did have some orientation towards IT, but my interest was more in terms of managing teams, building teams, scaling the business model. That was really the excitement for me in particular during the 80s, 90s, and the early 2000s. Being part of these initiatives, it gave me an opportunity to understand different cultures, travel to different geographies, put in place multiple partnerships, put in place initiatives that were, very much in sync with what were the requirements of the emerging industry, both in India, both in the domestic market as well as in the international marketplace. It was all of that which motivated me to be part of this story. And willy-nilly, over the last 30 years, that I would say was the beginning of a skilling journey for me. And from there to what I'm doing today, it is a different take on skilling. It's no longer just IT. We train people for green jobs. So the EV domain, for instance, we have set up close to 20 centers across the country.
Wow.
And today we train close to about 12,000 to 15,000 young people to find jobs in the EV segment.
Amazing.
Which is as important as it is to remind ourselves that AI is changing the way the industry, their careers are going to be reshaped. And therefore, we also look at bringing in that AI perspective with the tools, with the technologies, and at the same time, orienting the youth that they need to be mindful of the fact that they have to take charge of their careers, particularly at the entry level. We find that, customer service jobs or let's say any kind of operations role today, we know they are the targets for AI to take over. So they got to think about their roles differently, and they need to understand that they have to be ready to change the definition of their role or get on to a different kind of job on the strength of what they learn and how they can master some of the AI capabilities and prepare them for that sort of opportunity. So that's what is exciting about this skilling journey, which is an ongoing journey, I guess, for all of us.
I guess this is wonderful from perspective also, because it's not only like doing something which helps you to earn money, but shaping career. It's very different. It was like pre-COVID talking about digital education, to talk about people and to get into buy-in from different people and taking it to the next level. How was that?
Well, it was tough. It's not only you can say the pre-COVID era with respect to digital learning and digital interfaces. In fact, even before you can say internet driven learning came along, we had what is known as the desktop-based e-learning, where even that was something that everybody was very excited about, with the instructional designers trying to see how you could build content, and then of course take across this e-learning content to various organizations, various institutions, through desktop and through the local area networks. We were trying to see how to promote. And there were many, many naysayers at that point of time. And in fact, even just before, a little before COVID, when we set up our company, Global Talent Track, our whole charter was essentially to look at how do we use technology to reach out to large number of people. So we started very early experimenting with AR and VR. And in fact, when I was with Zee TV, I recall we entered into a collaboration with, we brought in the technology for interactive learning from Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And I recall traveling to Tel Aviv, discussing with all the users at that point of time in Israel, trying to understand how they were using the military technology, and how that's how Hughes Communications those days, they brought in the technology not only for communication but also as a medium of learning. So we set up again at Zee TV. We tried to blend the learning through this sort of interactive learning process along with television learning and the physical learning, and we created this blended learning model. So with all of that learning and experiences, initially we had to obviously find ways and means to create some initial pilot batches, get the results, show people how this can work. And of course, the technology was very expensive and difficult to implement in those days. So when we set up GTT, we thought, now that internet had become fairly commonplace, there will be many takers for online learning. And I was pleasantly surprised, or I would say saddened, to find that there were not very many takers even in the corporates. Some of the technology companies also continue to believe that it's only physical or classroom-based training which is going to be effective. And although we had the right kind of frameworks and platforms, they were not ready yet to adopt that mode of training for their employees. But surprisingly and fortunately for us, there was a huge buy-in from completely unplanned quarter in Malaysia, where they felt that India had already taken a huge leap in terms of bringing in a lot of BFSI outsourced business into the country. And we were working with some of those customers in India. And they said, can you please train our people? And when we looked at the economics, it was really not working out for us to send out trainers and do this in different at different periods of time for different batches. So we proposed to them, why don't we do this via technology? And they immediately said, yes, let's do this. So Kota Kinabalu, Kuala Lumpur, the Open University of Kuala Lumpur, in all of these places we did this training, and we learnt a lot through that process also, that see, this is working. So when COVID happened, then it was just a matter of 24 hours, because we were all set. The content, our whole team was oriented, technology was in place. So we could overnight literally flip over. And with all the corporates and the entire country and the world at large being ready to adopt some of the easier tools that were made available, it was fantastic opportunity for us to do something meaningful and impactful at that point of time.
Yeah. Amazing, ma'am. This is, people say that, when a problem or a situation is there which is tough, and the real leaders are the people who can actually, encash that. I guess with your journey, that, with all that preparation being ready, I guess you were able to do great work even and transform the company in no time to take the COVID challenge.
In fact, during COVID, one of the other interesting things that happened was, we needed a lot of resources to deal with those who are coming into hospitals and who required home care. And the biggest requirement was in the nursing profession, people who knew how to deal with COVID patients. So we quickly used we used our AR, VR capabilities, our e-learning understanding, and our technology platform. And we created this whole content, which in fact was supported by the Ministry of IT. And they said, okay, let's build this content. And we made it available for the Anganwadi workers
Wow.
who could, who did not have all of that training given to them earlier as to how they are going to support COVID patients. So hundreds of thousands of Anganwadi workers we could support during the COVID phase with this sort of technology and this kind of content, where they could actually visualize what the COVID patient was going to go through because of all of this, immersive experience they could have, and they could take adequate precautions and get onto the job easily.
Amazing, ma'am. So, ma'am, this is really great to learn that these kind of things, and coming of skills with solution which will help country. Ma'am, now one more thing which really is very fascinating about your career journey is this company GTT. GTT is one perfect example. So, would you like to talk about how was your journey?
But honestly, to begin with, we were on this very focused on the training journey, and wanted to see how we could grow the business only through training. But as an entrepreneur, we will have to be conscious about the opportunities that come along and see how we can probably dovetail our business model and see how we can make it into a much more meaningful and successful proposition. That is what has happened with GTT over the years.
This is wonderful to know about GTT, the way it has been structured, the way it has been doing. Apart from your career, you have done a lots of things. Not only skills. When skills is one area where you have dominated, you have shown, you have helped the country as well. Apart from it, the book that I have in hand, you have contributed to this book.
Yeah.
You have written a book on knowledge management, which was also very successful, and you recently came up with the book Nari Shakti. So, what was your thought of writing the book Nari Shakti as your recent one, and what was going in your mind?
Yeah, before I talk about Nari Shakti, I would like to mention there's another book which is called Accelerating Digital Success, which is co-authored with Dr. Ganesh Natarajan. That was also something that I managed to write along with him during COVID, and it got released just after COVID. So talking about Nari Shakti, this was a project, or you can say a book, which was in my mind for a very long time. And the soon after this book that you're holding in your hand, India's Pathway to Success, which was released under the aegis of Pune International Center, this idea of writing a book around the Indian women, their potential, and the future opportunities, we discussed with Pune International Center, and once again this book has been blessed and released under the aegis of PIC. So the idea of writing this book was to look at my own experience initially, where we every day we interact with hundreds of thousands of women, and out of the 100,000 individuals that we impact, almost 60% of them are women. And these women come from all walks of life. They are from the cities, they are from small towns, they are from communities where they are single mothers, single parents, and there are women who have never stepped out of their homes. So all of them have their own struggles, their own challenges. At the same time, there are some who are able to successfully lead their lives, and how we define a success in terms of their income, their health, the security that they are able to provide to their families, to the next generation. So we wanted to capture some of these experiences, and at the same time, when we think about the potential this country has, when we say this population that we have in our country, in terms of contribution to GDP, the contribution of women to the GDP of the country is far below what the men are able to do. That is because the economic potential is something that we have not been able to exploit to the fullest of their potential. So we wanted to take that view, and it is not just storytelling. It is not just about saying who has made it and who has not made it and why they have not made it, but being able to use the lens of, if we have to exploit that potential to the fullest, what do we need to do? And therefore, we were fortunate to bring together different experts from different domains, whether it was Arundhati Roy, whether it was Shafina Hussain, various people like that who have done a lot of work in their own spheres and have opportunities to talk about how did they manage to succeed in their own sphere, making an impact, and at the same time throwing light on, as a country, as a nation, if we want to become, I mean, we are already the fourth largest nation in terms of the GDP, but if we want to look at the per capita income, if that has to grow, there is a lot that we can do, and we cannot ignore women. So those are the perspectives that we have brought together. It's not only about, the book talks about, the fact that, yes, when it comes to education, when it comes to opportunities for enrolling into STEM programs, we have done phenomenally well. And of course, there is a lot of room to do better in terms of our gross enrollment ratio and so on. But after education, when you look at the entry-level jobs, today almost 50% of the jobs at the entry level, women are happily getting into those roles. And for instance, in the IT sector, we have close to 45 to 50% of the entry-level jobs are taken by women. But you will find that within 4 years, almost 50% drop off, which means 25% of them, by the time they reach the supervisory levels, they are no longer in the working mold.
I agree.
And in about 10 years' time, if you look at the CXO level, there's hardly 1% who's remaining in the organization or anywhere in the corporate sector. So that is a very big question that we have to ask ourselves. Why do women, despite being very well educated, and many corporates are actually providing for really a very positive and supportive environment, whether it's manufacturing companies, many of the IT companies, and still women are not able to stay on and take on leadership roles. So these are some of the dimensions we have explored in the book to see why they are not able to, and what is it that we need to do as a nation, as civil society, as corporates, as family units, the legal infrastructure, the social infrastructure, the government infrastructure, everything. We can't leave it to the government. These are questions as a society we have to ask ourselves and see how those can be addressed and solved, and different perspectives we have been able to bring together in this book to answer some of questions like these that I just mentioned.
Oh, amazing, because especially with the book like Nari Shakti, it really helps not only the individual female to think about it, but also where they can change their career paths and what they can do. But it also gives, it also pushes people to think about that, hey, that while you're creating policies within your organization or for the greater good, you can actually, how you can bring those female back to the jobs and create an ecosystem which can sustain for long. Ma'am, coming on to the next question, now that we see that currently that how this entire, as you were talking about the numbers, that how the numbers of females who are working across is reducing, and interestingly the paradigm in which we are working right now is also shifting towards gig economy and all. So how do you see that gig economy and females as a future that we can see in India?
See, I think in terms of entrepreneurship, gig economy, opportunities, they are plentiful. And especially a country like ours in its growth phase is open to all kinds of new ways of working, new ways of contributing to the economy. They are all possible. But fundamentally, if we were to look at even the startup ecosystem, we are also excited about the number of startups that have emanated from India, so many unicorns coming up. But if you look at the number of women who have really been able to, I'm talking about women only founded startups, they are really negligible. Despite the fact that money is available, mentoring support is available, several state governments and the central government have set up very, very exciting policies, incubation centers have come up. But why aren't women really coming up and taking up these opportunities to set up their own startups? Or forget about startups, working from in their own homes, self-employment. Why can't they do this? I think there are many questions, and I said many layers that we really have to address. If you look at even the communities where women are working as maids, if we were to provide them with an alternate to working from the perspective of social mobility, if they are able to stay at home and do something else rather than going into five or six homes and struggling to earn that 15,000-20,000 rupees, we find that there are different set of challenges they face. So if you're talking about educated women from middle class families, why aren't they able to come forward? There might be some inhibitions from the family. There might be inhibitions in terms of how do I get started with technology, confidence. So, when we look at the success stories of most women, whether they are from the middle class background or women from the communities who have risen from the ranks literally to build success stories for themselves, one thing that you find is they've all believed in themselves and they wanted to be their own change agent. So our country is blessed with a lot of opportunities and a support system, but it is up to us, up to women to feel confident, to want to make that change and seek out the support, and the support will come. For the women to believe in themselves, the confidence that is so very important for them to undertake any kind of activity, and for them to find other people to respect them and to buy into their own agenda, that they would like to be entrepreneurs, they would like to work from home, etc., etc. That sort of ownership they will have to take upon themselves. And of course, the society has to do a lot to support them. I'm not saying that's not important. Despite that, if women are not able to do this for themselves, then whatever the society, whatever others around them can do or cannot do, they will not really be able to be successful. So that is what I have discovered, or that is what a lot of women who are successful would say. And that's what I think is important for women, a large number of women in our country, to develop.
Well, we can understand very clearly that what a person or female, when they are really looking, what are the kind of things that goes into mind and how they should really work on. Ma'am, especially if we this would be the last question that I have in my mind, and seeing a good number of female entrepreneurs coming from Telangana, from the state of Telangana. And I guess there are quite a lot of aspiring to become female entrepreneurs even in Karnataka, Maharashtra. What would be 3 non-negotiable qualities that you feel a female should have to become a good entrepreneur?
See, even before we talk about a female to be a good entrepreneur, I think we have to recognize that entrepreneurship or any activity that we undertake, there is an outcome that anybody would have to sign up for, that we are willing to work towards. So which means irrespective of whether you are a male or a female, to be an entrepreneur, first and foremost, there has to be a solid value proposition. We know why this proposition is going to fly, why this proposition is going to be meaningful for the target segment. So that is a starting point, and it's a clear non-negotiable irrespective of the gender. The second, again from an entrepreneur's perspective, you have to give it whatever it takes, which means a 24 by 7 commitment in terms of your focus, in terms of your mindset, in terms of your energies. You need to be able to provide. And I'm not saying that whether it is a male or a female, you will have family commitments, you will have other priorities, etc. So whether it's male or a female, it is just the same. And more importantly for women, to say, well, I can only dedicate 10 hours because I have to do this, then I don't think that's going to work for an entrepreneur. And the third would be the networking ability. You may have a great idea, you know how to execute the model, you can bring together your team, but networking is so very crucial. It is not just through the associations, but it's your ability to reach out to people you don't know, and through them how you can get support for whatever venture, whatever ideas you have, validate, get inputs, get their support, learn from them. All of this happens through networking. And once again, this is important from the perspective of making an entrepreneurship exercise, initiative a success. And women sometimes have the tendency to stay behind and say, well, I don't know them, how do I go reach out to them? So they have to overcome that.